Almost a year ago to this day, I made an episode on what I thought was a product that had the potential to revolutionise the way we heat our homes, and that was the Heatbit. In a nutshell, it mined cryptocurrency and used the heat generated as a byproduct of that process to heat your home using the money it mined to effectively offset your heating bill. Well, it looks like Heatbit are back, having addressed some of their biggest concerns from their first generation model, and they've brought with them this thing. The Heatbit Mini. Intrinsically, this does the exact same thing that the original Heatbit does. It heats up your room whilst mining cryptocurrency, training AI models and rendering video games. And later on in the episode, I'll be comparing it to the nearest competitor, the Dyson HP 07, to find out which one is better. And straight away, you can tell there's quite a lot that's been changed. For starters, the new design is stunning. They've really worked hard on this one to make it look less like a white goods utility device and more like a piece of architectural intrigue that will probably add to your decor rather than destroying it. It's almost half the size as well of the original, sitting at around 60 centimeters tall and 22 centimeters diameter. It's super sleek. It certainly blends in a lot more with your room with its natural yet, I think, striking appearance. I love the solid aluminium body and the column-like styling, and with the air intake section at the bottom, which is kind of this cutout, it almost gives it the illusion that it's kind of floating or hovering from certain angles anyway. The brown strap as well, actually, that's a nice touch too. It gives it that kind of homely feel, whilst also offering a convenient grab spot to carry it from room to room. Now, on top, there's a full vent system that expels the air from the intake below. And under this is a small touch panel which can provide us with a bunch of necessary information such as the connection status and mode selection, along with basic controls for the device when you don't want to use the app for it. Now this, of course, is all new compared to the original Heatbit, which had no external controls and no display, something which I felt was needed, so it's great to see Heatbit include this on their new Heatbit Mini. Now interestingly, going back down to the air intake, there's these two little magnetic panels on the side. Pulling these off reveals Heatbit's brand new party trick. Not only will this heat your rooms, it will also purify them with two large HEPA filters. This for me is where things get really interesting for this product, because it means that it can compete in a product category that it just wasn't able to before. And not only this, it means that you'll have a reason to use it all year round. When it got to summertime with the first gen Heatbit, it would sit in a corner not being used for 6 months. But now, during the brief period of summer that we have here in the UK, although I don't know if slightly warmer grey constitutes as summer, I can switch this into air purification mode, which then is used to remove typical irritants of pollen and dust and other harmful pollutants from the room that it's in. Now, I'm fortunate enough not to suffer from hay fever, but my wife, on the other hand, is not so lucky. Her eyes become red, her nose streams, and she sneezes every 3 seconds from around April right the way through to September. By using a purifier, it helps reduce the pollen in the air and helps alleviate her hay fever. And because this does both heating and air purification, I don't need multiple devices, saving space, and therefore the Heatbit can offer me year-round value. Sure, during the summer you won't be gathering any money back on your electricity use because it's the act of generating income that creates the heat. So if you don't want the heat, you won't be able to earn pictures of the Queen. But as for heating, there's a hell of a lot more control in the new model that just wasn't available on the previous ones. For starters, there's 3 different heating modes available now. There's the base eco mode, which will heat using only the silicon inside the device, so will maintain temperature by computing and mining Bitcoin for you in a similar way that the previous model did. In this mode, it's capable of heating up to 21 degrees, so it should be enough for most spaces on most days. It uses around 400 watts of energy whilst doing this, and this mode will give you the most cashback on your heating bill. However, if it's a particularly cold day or you're in a bigger space, this is where you'll want to kick it up a notch to the climate control mode. This gives you full control of the temperature between 21 and 29 degrees, and it will not only utilise the heat from the mining, but it will also utilise its own inbuilt heating element to give the temperature a bit of a boost when needed. I think this is super clever, and actually it makes it far more practical device to heat than the original one, simply because of this supplemental heating element. This is the mode that I predominantly tested first, and as a measurement over 3 days of usage, it managed to keep the studio a toasty 22 degrees during the day, costing me a total of just £6.94, and used just shy of 25 kilowatts of energy. From that, I was able to generate $1.04 schmeckles, or whatever the smallest American denomination is, which equates to about 82 pence at the time of this review. This means that if we were to sort of crunch the numbers here, I paid 24p per kilowatt of energy to heat the room instead of the current price cap of 28p per kilowatt of energy. That's over 10% saving based on my usage so far. Now, there's more to the numbers than just the base principle of saving money back on the kilowatt, and obviously the different modes will generate different savings. So I'll come back to that later because there's some very surprising findings. But there's one more heating option, and that is the turbo mode. This sets all engines firing, turning on everything it can at maximum power to heat the place as fast as it can to 29 degrees and above. Realistically, in the regular home environment, I don't think you'll be using this particular mode that much. Potentially in massive spaces, but then again, this is capable of maintaining temperature in quite large spaces as it is. Where I was testing the Mini was in a garden office of around 240 square foot with pretty average insulation, and the temperature didn't drop below 22 degrees as I've already said, despite the fluctuating outdoor temperature moving between -1 and 8. But this is capable, supposedly, of heating spaces up to 400 square meters in size. Unfortunately, I don't have a space big enough to test that, but at 240, I can say for certain I had no concerns at all. But as with turbo mode, you might just use this mode to give the place a boost or to get up to temperature quicker, if perhaps the heating hasn't been on for a period of time. Either way, it's the fact that this has traditional heating elements alongside mining chips that makes this a much more versatile machine over both its predecessor and anything else on the market. In fact, when comparing it to the nearest possible competing product in terms of feature set, it's quite clear to see who the winner is. Take the Dyson HP07 for example. On paper, they perform very similar functions. They both heat, they both purify, but let's drill down on the specs a little further and play a game of top trumps. Let's go with heating space. Heatbit wins at 400 square foot. Let's go with noise while heating. Heatbit wins at 40 decibels. Let's go with the replacement filter cost. Heatbit wins at $29. Cost of running per month whilst heating? Again, Heatbit wins simply based on the money back from computing. Now, admittedly, there are a couple of little things that the HP07 has over the Heatbit, such as carbon filtering and 0.4% better filtering of particles, but I guess it can be used as a fan during the really hot weather as well, which could be a benefit. But that's kind of it. All the other advantages get awarded to the Heatbit Mini. And I haven't even told you the best advantage. The last top trumps is the price, which goes to the Heatbit Mini. Going off the RRP, the Heatbit is actually $50 less than the Dyson at just $799. So, in this case, I've got to ask the question, why on earth would anyone choose the Dyson over the Heatbit Mini? Not only does it do almost all of the same things, it looks nicer in my opinion, and it earns me money back on my heating bill. But just how much money can it save you? Well, you already know, for me, in the circumstances that I mentioned earlier, it'll save me 10% on my heating bill running it in climate control mode, but the amount you'll make back changes considerably based on how and where you choose to use it, and it's capable of saving you much, much more than my example, possibly to the point where it starts actually making you money. Now, on the Heatbit website, they've got a really handy calculator that shows just how much money that you'll make back on your electric spend running the heater based on eco mode. In the US, it's quite possible that you can get around 75% of the cost per kilowatt back, meaning using this will cost you just 25% of any other type of heater, which is an insane saving. In the UK, on the other hand, we're being absolutely shafted by the professional government-sanctioned con Ofgem, constantly putting the price of energy up, despite record-breaking profits from energy companies, but that's an argument for another day. But because of this, running the Heatbit will cost us 28 pence per kilowatt of energy, which is about 0.35 of a dollar, over double what the US pays for their energy. But even at that price, if you use the eco mode, you'll still get back about 30% on your energy bill, meaning that rather than 28 pence per hour to run your heating, it'll cost just 19 pence per hour, which can equal some incredible savings. One of our outbuildings uses an oil radiator which eats around 500 kilowatts a month, costing me about 140. If I chose to replace that with the Heatbit Mini, and it was capable of maintaining the heat in there at eco mode, then I could save about £42 a month. If I run that for 6 months, that's 252, which I've just saved, which after just 18 months of winter's use, the Heatbit will have ended up paying for itself. But there's much more to this calculation that meets the eye, because you've got to factor in the price of Bitcoin. So let's say that you ran the Heatbit Mini last year and made a saving of £252 for the winter season. That money goes into your Heatbit wallet, where you can either keep it in cryptocurrency or move it to another crypto wallet or move it to your bank account. But if you'd kept that £252 in your Heatbit wallet, then it would be now worth £526, as the price of Bitcoin has increased 109% in just a year. That means that Heatbit would have paid for itself nearly after just 6 months of use. Look, I'm not trying here to make a compelling argument to buying a Heatbit. This thing is literally making the argument here for me. And at this rate, it's hard to think of any other alternative to heating solutions that comes close to the benefits that this has. Now, I don't pretend here that I'm a physicist. My physics knowledge is purely intermediate, so I'm sure there are some scientists out there who might want to chip in about the conversion of energy and the efficiency process to generate heat. So if anyone feels like doing some maths in the comments to work out the Heatbit's actual efficiency numbers, then please go ahead. It'd be very interesting to see that result. But I'm convinced that this has to be the most efficient heater to heat your home that you can buy right now, and possibly amongst the most stylish. Now, although that may be the case, and although Heatbit have included some incredible advancements on the second iteration of their device, there are a few things I think they could improve with future devices. The first is the angle of heating. As it is, it's rigged so that the heat is expelled more as a sort of ambient heating coming out from the top of the unit. This on one hand is good for the overall ambient temperature. However, it would be awesome to be able to angle these vents slightly, so if I wanted to direct the heat more, then I could do. Secondly, I'd love it if the silent mode on the Heatbit turned off the display, or if there was an option to turn off the display some other way, perhaps through an app. I'm one of those people that struggles to sleep if there are any lights on in the room at all. I even pack a roll of electrical tape whilst travelling. Not for any fun encounters, unfortunately, but purely so I can cover up the stupidly bright LEDs that hotels like to have on in your rooms on things like room phone, your TV, your aircon, smoke alarm, and anything else they can fit an LED into. Once I've covered them all up, only then can I sleep. With the Heatbit's display being so bright and vivid, it looks great during the day, but it is a little bright at night. Hopefully that's just a software thing though, and they might be able to add the option to turn the display off through the app in a future update. But despite that, I want to stop press for just a second. Whilst reviewing gadgets, I often give feedback on any criticisms that I'll be discussing in episodes directly to brands, so that my points are heard clear as day. I sent this criticism about the bright display at night to Heatbit, and just last night I got an email pop into my inbox from them saying the next software update will include automatic dimming as well as the opportunity to do it manually. So there you go, yet another thing that Heatbit have listened to. Now, back to my final thoughts on the Heatbit Mini. This is one of those rare products where the company listens to all of the feedback and absolutely nails the second iteration. And Do you know what? I'm really looking forward to see what the guys over at Heatbit come up with next. Perhaps a coffee table with all of this built in, like those IKEA air purifier tables. Imagine that. Coffee table that heats, purifies, and makes me money. Anyway, I'm genuinely a fan of this technology, and I think it's got masses and masses of potential, and I think this new device shows that even more than the original one did. It's such a refinement from the original device that I think more people will start to see this as a technology solution to heat their homes or garden offices to reduce their overall cost, especially as energy prices continue to rise and rise. What do you think? Does the Heatbit Mini spark your interest? Do you think mining cryptocurrency as a form of heating has a future? Or is it just a novel idea that'll be forgotten to the history books? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be replying to all of your thoughts over the next couple of hours, so do drop down there and say hi. And if you want to see more, why not check out my review of the original Heatbit to see how far these guys have come in just a single year. But other than that, guys, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you back for another episode of STU'S Reviews soon. I'm going to stick this back on now because it's getting a bit cold.